Very happy Monday to everybody. Very, very nice to see you guys. Welcome, welcome. It's a lovely Monday afternoon, and I'm happy to spend a little bit of time with you guys. There's a lot to talk about, but first of all, I want to just say welcome to everybody. For any first timers that are here, very, very welcome. Nice to see you all. Happy trading, happy trails, happy Monday, and hopefully a happy week to all of us. If any of you would like to get a free trial to the trade group, we have got a trade group, and you can log in and see what we're up to and see how we're looking at these wild and crazy markets, which are nothing short of wild and crazy. And we'd love to have you with us. So click on that link, daytradersfx.com/join, set up a free trial, see what we are doing, and we'll take it from there. Okay, so first of all, I hope everybody had a really excellent weekend and got some good rest as we all kind of went into the weekend thinking, what is in the works? What's happening? We saw that the Dow on Friday. Does anybody remember what the Dow did on Friday? I think it closed about it was about 500 points down on Friday, and that was pretty intense. Yeah, about 531, and everyone was thinking, is this gonna get better? Is this gonna get worse? One thing that was interesting and good and/or entertaining was the fact that 10% of correction is good. We need to see 10% corrections in the stock market, especially as things have gone as much as they've gone. Here's the crazy thing, and for anybody trading stocks, just be so super careful because everybody was looking for a 10% correction, and then I think that has appeased many, and many are thinking it's time. There might be a buying opportunity. I'm not trying to point any fingers, Mel, but just be really super careful because this kind of massive correction that we've just seen over the last couple of days, basically Thursday, Friday, and today, chances are that's not the end of the road. That could be a bit of a preview of more coming attractions. There's a very, very few people I listen to when it comes to stocks, about two of them to be exact. And those two people that have had a pretty fantastically excellent track record are all confirming my point of view, which is stocks have more to go to the downside. So Donald Trump is definitely not one of them. Yeah, that's funny. But we still probably have a bit more to go. Now the question is going to be, how's that going to affect currencies? What's that going to do? We have some interesting news this week that may or may not have a big impact on currencies, and it's not looking like they're going to have too massive of an impact. We have some euro numbers and some consumer confidence, a little bit of trade balance, blah, blah, durable goods, some of that stuff. It's not a huge news week. And then we've got Carney speaking on Friday, which is always interesting. And then for anybody that cares, one of the voting members of the FOMC, Fisher, will be speaking on Saturday. And I'm going to be probably getting sunburned on Saturday, so I won't be doing much of that. Here's a little look at some charts of things that we've seen moving around and hopping around a little bit. These candlesticks right here are gold. This is gold. And we've seen that gold has kind of been on a big move down. We saw gold bottom out. Let's see, I'm on a daily chart here. We saw gold bottom out a good little bit down here about a little above the $1,000 mark, and it's pulled back up a good chunk. It's up off those lows by 10% or so. Very nice little movement. All the while, we've seen the S&P and the Dow bouncing around up here and then taking a pretty big dump the last couple of days, and they're all kind of going to meet in the middle here. We see that nice inverse relationship between gold and S&P and Dow movement as of late, and gold seems to be on a pretty strong rally, while the S&P and the Dow seem to be taking a pretty big dive to the downside. So we're kind of watching that. We're seeing where that goes. Another one that I keep a very, very close eye on is, as of course everybody should, oil. Oil's a big one to be watching. We just broke some pretty significant support that was back here at that $43 mark. Oil is actually down below $40. This is the American version of oil, the West Texas Intermediate oil, which a lot of things are based on Brent crude as well, which is a little bit higher, but nonetheless, this has made it into some pretty interesting territory, which we see oil around the $38 mark. Which is intense. So a lot of crazy things are happening. And this means probably more pain for the stock market. We're probably going to see more dips in the stock market. And what is that going to do for some of these U.S. dollar trades? Now, we've seen a very interesting mix of things happening. The euro has taken off and gone crazy. We'll talk a little bit more about why that is. But the dollar, you can see the dollar has lost a lot against the euro just in the last couple of days. The euro was bouncing around 110, and here it is it's up several hundred pips in like 3 days, 3 or 4 days, where the euro hasn't done anything for months, literally months, and now here it is up a couple hundred pips. We see the pound, on the other hand, still not doing much. We're going to talk about what that's going to mean. We see commodity pairs getting hammered. We see these long wicks. Australian pairs and New Zealand pairs have just taken pretty nice moves down. The high of the month to the low on the Aussie dollar is about 400 pips now. So we're seeing the euro has been quite strong, and the dollar has been very mixed against everything. The pound has been fairly mixed against everything. You can see that the U.S. dollar has been very strong against the Canadian dollar. So here's Canadian dollar. It's U.S. dollar versus Canadian dollar. It's back up again. We've got some pretty overextended setups here, and it just keeps running higher. So we're definitely seeing some dollar strength there. Definitely tied in with some of that oil weakness that we've seen. And so dollar CAD is making another run up like that. Again, the commodity pairs have gotten hammered over the last 24 hours pretty badly. Australian and New Zealand pairs. We've seen yen pairs go totally crazy. The yen has just, as the stock market has sold off, the yen has just taken off and gone crazy. We can see this, by the way, is very interesting / very amazing and wonderful and fantastic and really great. The dollar yen is down just in the last, 3 or 4 or 5 days. The dollar yen has run down 800 pips. Big move on dollar yen, and we see that pretty well across a lot of pairs. The yen is just finally making a huge comeback. So, little preview there. Let's talk in a little bit more detail. The only thing I want to say about the euro dollar right now is the fact that last Monday we talked about this being a far-fetched scenario, but very possible, and that is the 38% fib on the euro dollar getting hit. And where is that 38% fib, you might ask? 1/1800. We talked about this last week, and we said 1/1800 it's a target that's out there, and it could very likely get hit, but it could take some time. Well, it did take some time, like 2 days, for the euro to run up there. So 118 still stands as my target. Remember that 23 to 38% fib trade that I love and talk about so very much played out just textbook fantastically right here. And so we had that big low on euro dollar. It came up and it chopped around that 23% fib, but now it's making a very nice run. And I'm absolutely looking for 11800 to get hit. Now, what are we going to do with the euro dollar? It's going to be a tough one to enter. These are always tough. We're going to get to 11800 on euro dollar. There's pretty much no doubt about that. And we could see 120 even. I'm not totally shooting for that, but it's absolutely possible. But what we're going to be looking for on euro dollar is any amount of pullback. You can see that we've had, if we go back to the weekly chart here, we've had kind of this little channel right here, this fairly well tested channel. If euro dollar gives us some pullback into about the 114.50 area, it needs to dip down probably 150 pips to get down into the kind of this 200 moving average / support zone / all of this stuff right there. I'm looking for about 114.50 for a buy. There's a lot of support there, and it's pounded through that level, and it's within range of that 11800. So given our success rate with the 23 to 38% fib type trade, I think we've got a really great chance of 11800 getting reached, which is not super far away. It's only 200 pips away at this point. That's pretty close, but I'd like to see about 100 to 150 pip pullback and an opportunity to buy this euro dollar around 114.50 and trade it up into that. So that's what I'm looking for on euro dollar. It's going to be a tricky one. If it doesn't pull back to about 114.50, give or take, then I'm just not going to get into it. I'm definitely not going to try to chase it. But if it does, we're definitely going to start layering into that trade and seeing if we can run it up from about 114.50 into about 11800. So I think there could be a couple hundred pips of nice activity going on there. So So that's what I'm looking for on euro dollar. Pound dollar, I think, is just totally fantastically great. Pound dollar, the biggest target that I'm looking for, and I'm sorry to say, not crazy exciting, but I think we've got a really great chance for it. Markets love to hit these missed pivots. In fact, they really, really, really like to hit these missed pivots a lot. And the pound dollar will be no exception. It's got a high propensity to reaching these missed pivot points. Of course, there's no guarantee that this will happen, but there's a pretty good likelihood that we're within range now, and that we're seeing some pretty good unwinding of U.S. dollar longs right now. And so I'm looking for about 160 on pound dollar, and I think there's a really, really good chance of getting to that 160 area. Now, what do we need to see on pound dollar to get to 160? I'd like to get some pullback. Remember this level we've talked about a million bazillion times, 156.75 area. I'd like to see the pound get a little closer to that area. I'd like to see a little bit of pullback down, basically below 157.00, at or below 157.00, and I'm going to be long pound dollar into 160. So 157.00 or a little bit below, 156, 70, 80, 90, right in that general area, and even as high as 157.00. And I am long pound dollar up into 160, will be my target. So I like that one a lot. I'm not doing too much with some of these others for the moment that we typically look at. Aussie dollar, dollar CAD, Aussie, New Zealand, all of those pairs. I'm just kind of sitting tight on those ones. But I find that it is very fantastic that we're starting to see a little bit of movement on yen pairs. Now, why does the yen, why do we care that the yen might be moving a little bit? And that is a very good question. For those of you that have been trading for a while, you'll remember that yen pairs, particularly like the dollar yen, I remember this wasn't so long ago. This was 2012. I'm on a weekly chart here. 2012, I remember looking at the dollar yen and thinking, wow, where's this thing going to go? It spent basically, if we look back here, and all through 2011, the dollar yen had a high in 2011 of about 85, 85.50, and a low of about 75.50. It had about 1,000 pip range for the entire year of 2011. 2012 rolled around. We saw that low of about 75.50, 7,600 hold. We saw a high of about 83. 100, and it kind of just continued to bounce around for two. Keep in mind, it's easy to look at this. I have this zoomed out. This is a weekly chart. It's like, well, just a little small middle portion here was pretty quiet. This was 2 years. This was 2 solid years of dollar yen doing nothing. It did absolutely nothing for 2 years, and it didn't do that much the year before and that much the year before. 2009 and 2010 were just not, they weren't amazing. They moved, but they weren't super fantastic. But then we had this 2011 and 2012 that held the dollar yen basically in the 1,000 pip channel for pretty much 24 solid months, 24, 25 months. Everybody thought, wow, that's crazy, and what's going to happen there? And then right at the end of 2012, the dollar yen broke out. And I remember this happening, and it just ran basically pretty much with no retracement, very, very little pullback. It ran from those lows of 2012 all the way up about 2,500 pips over, a 3-month period. And everybody was a little bit blown away by that. And then we saw the dollar yen consolidate just around the 100 mark, and we saw a nice little wedge forming here. And then it broke out from 100 and ran up, as we can see, the high of about 125. So another 2,500 pips. The dollar yen basically in front of everybody ran up 5,000 or 6,000 pips after 2 years of doing nothing. Well, that happened on pretty much every yen pair. And the reason that's significant is because if you think that pivot points have any value and 200 moving average setups that I look at have any value, then you'll recognize that these yen pairs have been fairly overextended to the upside for quite some time. And this could very likely be the beginning of a fantastic opportunity to start buying up yen, to buy the crud out of these yen pairs. Now, shorting these yen pairs or buying the yen against everything. Kind of what I'm looking at for the moment. I need to see how this plays out a little bit, but basically I'm looking for opportunities to sell some pullback on these yen pairs. I want to see the dollar yen. It needs to pull back a little bit, another 150 or 200 pips, and I'm going to start looking for opportunities around the 120 area on dollar yen to short this once again and start taking out some of these countless missed daily and weekly pivot points and start working its way down into that 200 moving average on the weekly chart. So dollar yen is very interesting for that. It's going to make a very solid, nice, fantastic close below the 200 moving average on the daily chart, which we've been waiting for a little while. And I want to see some pullback up towards that 120 area, up towards that 200 moving average, and I'm going to start shorting the heck out of this dollar yen. So over the next couple of days, if this can pull back a little bit, I'm going to be ready to short this thing like crazy. So that's what I'm looking for on dollar yen right now. I think also that we're going to have some pretty excellent opportunities on other yen pairs. I got a little discouraged on the euro yen. I thought, darn it, this euro yen head and shoulders pattern is not going to play out. Well, I'm starting to think that I was totally wrong on that. We didn't take a trade. We haven't taken a trade yet. But this head and shoulders pattern on the euro yen is looking pretty excellent still. We've got a shoulder that ran up here a little bit. That's totally fine. It's double topped, and now we've got another rising wedge, which I love, love, love to see. And so this rising wedge is looking really excellent. And hopefully it's going to give us some nice play down into the low 130s on dollar yen and potentially into the mid 120s, which would be fantastic. So as we currently sit about 175 pips from the high, I will probably be looking for opportunities to short euro yen at a higher price. Otherwise, I'm going to be looking for opportunities to short euro yen at the break of 13600. So about another 135 or 40 pips below. So a little bit of pullback towards these highs or a break of these lows right here, and I'm going to be shorting this euro yen down into the low 130s and hopefully through that whole area and playing out, watching this huge head and shoulders pattern play out, which I think is going to be really fantastic. So I think dollar yen has a really great opportunity. I think euro yen has a really, really great opportunity. And I think pound yen has a great opportunity. This one has been running up very nicely and testing, same kind of situation. This is a weekly chart. The pound yen did about the same thing as the dollar yen did for a couple of years. 2011 had a little bit of a bigger range, about 2,000 pips, but it's the pound yen. It moves easily twice as much as the dollar yen. And then about the same thing for 2012, and then this just took off as well. And as soon as it got above that 200 moving average at 132, it just ran nonstop into into about the 19700 area. It just went totally crazy, 6,000 pips up. And so that was a really nice little move there. And now we're looking at some correction. And I think all the yen pairs, I don't think all the yen pairs are overextended to the upside, and they're ready for a little bit of return, a little bit of comeback. So if nothing else, we trade the pound yen down to the trend line here, down to this support, and it bounces off that and comes right back on up. That's 400 pips, and I'm pretty okay with that. So what we're going to be looking for on pound yen is any retracement, any pullback, and we're looking to trade this thing down into, about 180, 180, 100, right around there. So we've got a good couple hundred pips to work with on the pound yen. So it's going to be all about watching the pullback on these yen pairs, euro yen, pound yen, dollar yen, and shorting the heck out of those. Some of them we want to see a little bit bigger of a pullback than others, but still we're just looking for retracement. Euro yen, I'd like to see it pull back 50, 75 pips, and I'll probably start shorting it at that point. Dollar yen, I want to see it pull back about 150 pips, and I'll start shorting it. Pound yen, probably needs to pull back just a little bit more before I start shorting it, but it should be great. It's got some really good potential. New Zealand yen is pretty interesting looking. It's done not a whole lot for the last couple of months. It's just been consolidating around this 80 level, and then it just pounded on through with all this New Zealand getting beat up and yen pairs just going crazy strong. So we're currently about 400 pips off the low, and we're about 400 pips from the breakout area. So we're right in the middle of this kind of big movement here. I want to see this pull back just a little bit, and I'll be looking to short this below the 80 level, somewhere around 7850 to 7900. I'll be looking to short this, but I definitely don't want to try to just jump into this thing in the middle of a huge movement. But I do like shorting New Zealand yen a good bit. I like shorting Canadian yen a lot. I think this is going to be a really excellent trade coming up as well. So a little bit of pullback, and we've got some good potential for this to start moving back into those lows. So CAD yen should be very interesting. One that I have been watching very carefully for some time, and I took my eyes off it for a couple of minutes, was the Aussie yen. Aussie yen has really been testing this yearly low and bouncing around this 89 level that we've talked about many times in the group. And then, of course, in the last day or so, it's just plowed through those levels by hundreds and hundreds of pips. So again, looking for a little bit of pullback into the high 80s on Aussie yen, and I'll be shorting this pair as well. So basically, what I'm going to be looking for this week is a little bit of pullback on pound dollar, buying that. A little bit of pullback, a decent bit of pullback on euro dollar, buying that. And then I'm looking for dollar yen, euro yen, pound yen, Aussie yen, pretty much all the yen pairs to pull back, and I want to short these puppies right on down. We have across those pairs, we have 20 and 30 missed weekly and daily and monthly pivot points on pretty much each pair. And so there's some really fantastic lower targets to shoot for on all of those yen pairs. And I'm really liking those setups. So at this point, it's just going to be pullback, patience for the pullback on the yen pairs, and then shorting those like crazy is kind of what I'm looking for. Remember, the yen pairs are wild and they're very volatile, and these will be pairs you'll want to trade with small trade sizes, and you'll want to definitely make sure that you're safe and cautious about this, and that you're using good money management, and that you're trading at your own risk. This is really, this kind of stuff is going to be some volatile, crazy market conditions, and you've got to be so super careful with everything. But there's also some very nice movements on yen pairs during this high volatility as well. So make sure you're careful with everything, and make sure you're kind of trading at your own risk, and that you're using money that you can, put into the market and potentially not get back out. But I think these are going to be some really excellent opportunities coming up here. So that's what I'm going to be looking for. So let's discuss any questions, any comments you have about anything at all. And let me know any pairs that you want to look at, anything that we may have missed. And send your questions over, and just know these are the things we're going to be looking at. I'm going to have a lot of charts coming this week to kind of follow up with these yen pairs and see how these guys are looking and moving and going and so on. So it'll be really exciting. This week is, hold on, buckle up, and be really careful, because it's probably going to be kind of crazy. Okay, so euro dollar, pound dollar, and then yen pairs is pretty much where my head is this entire week, and I think it's going to be pretty exciting. So that's what I'm looking at. Questions, comments, send them over. Thanks for joining us. Make sure to get a free trial at daytradersfx.com/join.